The arena was alive with energy, buzzing like a beehive as fans poured in through the gates. People of all ages, shapes, and sizes filled the seats, their faces glowing with excitement under the bright stadium lights. It was game night, and Caitlin Clark, one of the most celebrated basketball players in the league, was about to take the court. Her name echoed through the stands as fans chanted her name, holding up banners and jerseys adorned with her number. For many, this was more than just a game. It was an opportunity to witness greatness firsthand. Among the thousands of spectators sat Sarah, a young woman whose love for basketball was as deep as anyone else's in the arena. But Sarah's journey to this moment had been far from ordinary. Born with cerebral palsy, she had spent her life navigating challenges that others could barely imagine. Simple tasks like walking or standing were impossible for her, but none of that dampened her spirit. She relied on a wheelchair to move around, yet she never let her physical limitations define her. Basketball was her escape, a world where she could dream big, cheer loudly, and feel connected to something larger than herself. Sarah's admiration for Caitlin wasn't just about her skills on the court. Caitlin was known not only for her incredible talent, but also for her humility and determination. Stories of how Caitlin overcame obstacles in her early career had resonated deeply with Sarah. Caitlin had once been told she wasn't good enough to make it to the top tier of basketball. Instead of giving up, she worked harder, proving her critics wrong at every step. To Sarah, Caitlin wasn't just a star athlete. She was living proof that perseverance could turn dreams into reality. That night, Sarah had come to the game with her family, clutching a small notebook where she had scribbled questions she hoped to ask Caitlin someday. She knew the chances of meeting her idol were slim. After all, Caitlin was surrounded by throngs of people wherever she went. Still, Sarah couldn't help but hope. As the players began warming up near the sidelines, Sarah's heart raced. She watched Caitlin dribble effortlessly across the court, her movements fluid and precise. Every pass, every shot seemed almost magical. Summoning every ounce of courage she possessed, Sarah leaned forward in her wheelchair and called out, "Caitlin!" Her voice was soft at first, almost drowned out by the noise of the crowd. But when Caitlin glanced in her direction, Sarah tried again, louder this time. "Caitlin!" The word hung in the air, cutting through the din of the arena like a thread pulling two worlds together. To everyone's astonishment, Caitlin stopped mid-dribble. She turned toward the sound, her eyes scanning the sea of faces until they landed on Sarah. A warm smile spread across Caitlin's face as she jogged over to where Sarah sat. Fans nearby gasped in disbelief. Was this really happening? Caitlin Clark, the superstar who rarely had a moment to herself during games, was actually approaching a fan? As Caitlin knelt down beside Sarah, the noise of the arena faded into the background. For a brief moment, it felt like the entire world had paused to witness this unlikely encounter. "Hey there," Caitlin said softly, her voice kind and inviting. "What's your name?" "Sarah," she stammered, her cheeks flushing with a mix of nervousness and excitement. Meeting Caitlin had always been a distant dream, something she thought might happen only in her wildest fantasies. Now here she was, face to face with the person who had inspired her countless times. "I've seen you play so many times," Sarah continued, her words tumbling out faster now. "You're amazing. You don't know how much you mean to me." Caitlin's expression softened further. She reached out and gently placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "Thank you, Sarah. That means a lot coming from someone like you." Someone like you. Those four simple words carried so much weight. Caitlin didn't see Sarah as just another fan. She saw her as a human being with dreams, struggles, and a story worth hearing. In that instant, Sarah felt seen, not pitied or judged, but truly understood. Their conversation lasted only a few minutes, but it felt like hours. Caitlin asked Sarah about her favorite team, her hobbies, and what she loved most about basketball. Sarah answered eagerly, her shyness melting away with each passing second. When Caitlin finally stood up to return to the court, she gave Sarah one last reassuring smile. "Stay strong, okay? Keep chasing your dreams. You've got this." As Caitlin jogged back to join her teammates, Sarah sat there, her heart pounding, with a mix of awe and gratitude. The encounter had been brief, but its impact was monumental. For the first time in a long while, Sarah felt like anything was possible. If Caitlin, who had faced her own share of challenges, could rise to the top, then maybe Sarah could overcome her own hurdles too. Around them, the crowd erupted into applause, cheering not just for Caitlin's skill on the court, but for the kindness she had shown off it. Strangers sitting nearby leaned over to congratulate Sarah, telling her how lucky she was to have met Caitlin. But luck had little to do with it. What had transpired between Sarah and Caitlin was more than mere chance. It was a testament to the power of connection, compassion, and shared humanity. Little did Sarah know, this was only the beginning of an unforgettable journey. The bond she had formed with Caitlin that night would go on to inspire not just her, but countless others who heard their story. And as the game tipped off, Sarah clutched the armrests of her wheelchair tightly, her mind replaying every word Caitlin had said. This wasn't just a basketball game anymore, it was a turning point in her life, one she would remember forever. As Caitlin knelt beside Sarah, the world around them seemed to fade away. The loud cheers of the crowd, the squeak of sneakers on the polished court, and the rhythmic bounce of basketballs all became distant sounds. For those few precious moments, it was just the two of them, a superstar athlete and a young fan with dreams bigger than her wheelchair. Caitlin's eyes sparkled with genuine curiosity as she leaned closer, eager to learn more about the person who had called out to her. "You're such a big inspiration to me," Sarah said, her voice trembling slightly. She clutched the edge of her notebook tightly, as if it were a lifeline keeping her grounded. "I've watched so many of your games and I just wanted to tell you that you've helped me believe in myself." Caitlin's smile widened, but there was also a hint of humility in her expression. "Wow," she replied softly. "That's really special to hear. Thank you for saying that." She paused for a moment, studying Sarah's face. There was something about this young woman that struck a chord deep within her. Maybe it was the sincerity in her voice or the way her eyes lit up when she spoke about basketball. Whatever it was, Caitlin felt an instant connection. "Tell me more," Caitlin encouraged, her tone warm and inviting. "What do you love most about basketball?" Sarah hesitated for a second, unsure where to begin. But then, like a dam breaking, the words poured out of her. "It's not just the game itself," she explained. "It's how it makes me feel. When I watch you play, I forget about everything else, the pain, the frustration, the things I can't do. It's like, for those few hours, I'm free. You make me believe that anything is possible." Her words hung in the air, carrying a weight that neither of them could ignore. Caitlin nodded slowly, her own emotions bubbling to the surface. "I get that," she said after a moment. "There were times in my life when I felt like giving up too. People told me I wasn't good enough, that I'd never make it. But basketball gave me hope. It taught me to keep fighting, no matter what." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. She had read interviews where Caitlin talked about her struggles, but hearing it directly from her idol made it feel real, tangible. "Really?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You felt like that too?" Caitlin chuckled lightly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Oh yeah. Trust me, it wasn't easy. There were days when I doubted myself, when I wondered if all the hard work was worth it. But every time I stepped onto the court, I reminded myself why I started playing in the first place. And now, seeing fans like you, it reminds me that this journey isn't just about me. It's about inspiring others to believe in themselves too." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she listened. She had always admired Caitlin's talent, but now she saw her in a completely different light. This wasn't just a player who scored points and won championships. This was someone who understood struggle, who knew what it meant to fight against odds stacked high. In that moment, Caitlin wasn't just a role model, she was a kindred spirit. "I wish I could be as brave as you," Sarah admitted, her voice thick with emotion. "Sometimes I feel like I'll never be able to achieve anything because of my condition. It's hard to dream when people look at me and see only limitations." Caitlin's expression softened, and she placed a gentle hand on Sarah's arm. "Hey," she said firmly, making sure Sarah looked her in the eye. "Don't ever let anyone tell you what you can or can't do. Your strength doesn't come from what you can physically accomplish. It comes from here." She tapped her chest lightly over her heart. "You've already shown so much courage just by being here tonight, by believing in yourself despite everything. That's what truly matters." The sincerity in Caitlin's voice broke through Sarah's defenses. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she absorbed every word. No one had ever spoken to her like this before, with such conviction and understanding. It was as if Caitlin had reached into her soul and pulled out the doubts and fears she had buried for years. "I don't know what to say," Sarah murmured, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "This means so much to me." "You don't have to say anything," Caitlin replied with a reassuring smile. "Just promise me one thing, that you'll keep dreaming, no matter what. Promise me you'll never stop believing in yourself." Sarah nodded vigorously, her heart swelling with determination. "I promise," she whispered, her voice steady despite the tears still rolling down her face. For the next few minutes they continued talking, their conversation flowing naturally, like they had known each other for years. Caitlin shared stories about her own battles, how she used to practice late into the night when everyone else had gone home, how she ignored the naysayers who doubted her abilities. She spoke candidly about the sacrifices she had made and the lessons she had learned along the way. Each story was a reminder that success wasn't handed to anyone. It had to be earned through grit and perseverance. In turn, Sarah opened up about her own life, sharing glimpses of her daily struggles and triumphs. She told Caitlin about the times she had been excluded from activities because of her disability, the stares and whispers she endured in public places. But she also spoke about the joy she found in small victories, learning to navigate her wheelchair with ease, cheering loudly at games, and writing poetry in her notebook to express her feelings. By the time Caitlin stood up to return to the court, both women felt a profound sense of connection. They weren't just a fan and a player anymore. They were two individuals bound by shared experiences, mutual respect, and an unshakable belief in the power of resilience. As Caitlin jogged back toward her teammates, she glanced over her shoulder and gave Sarah one last encouraging smile. Sarah waved back, her heart lighter than it had been in months. The encounter may have been brief, but its impact would linger long after the final buzzer sounded. Around them, the crowd erupted into applause once again, moved by the authenticity of the moment. Strangers nearby patted Sarah on the shoulder, congratulating her for having the courage to speak up. Some even snapped photos capturing the interaction to share with friends and family. What had started as a simple exchange between two people had transformed into something far greater, a beacon of hope and inspiration for everyone lucky enough to witness it. And as the game resumed, Sarah sat back in her seat, clutching her notebook tightly. Her mind raced with thoughts of Caitlin's words, each sentence etched into her memory like a mantra. For the first time in a long while, she felt unstoppable. The game was about to begin, but the energy in the arena felt different now. The brief yet powerful interaction between Caitlin and Sarah had left a mark not only on those two individuals, but also on everyone who had witnessed it. Fans around Sarah were still buzzing with excitement, recounting what they had seen and heard. Some leaned over to ask her questions, while others simply offered smiles of encouragement. Sarah, though overwhelmed by the attention, couldn't stop smiling herself. Her heart was full, and she felt like she was floating above the ground, untouched by the weight of her wheelchair. But just when Sarah thought the moment couldn't get any better, something extraordinary happened. As Caitlin prepared to rejoin her teammates for the tip-off, she suddenly stopped mid-stride. Turning back toward Sarah, she jogged over once again, this time holding something in her hands. It was a jersey. Her own personalized game jersey emblazoned with her name and number across the back. Caitlin held it up proudly as she approached, her eyes shining with emotion. "For you," Caitlin said softly, kneeling down again to hand it to Sarah. "I want you to have this." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She stared at the jersey, unable to believe what was happening. Her hands trembled as she reached out to take it. The fabric felt soft against her fingertips, but its significance weighed heavily on her heart. This wasn't just any piece of clothing, it was a symbol of everything Caitlin represented: strength, determination, and unwavering kindness. I don't know what to say, Sarah stammered, clutching the jersey tightly to her chest. Tears welled up in her eyes again, spilling over before she could stop them. Thank you so much. Caitlin smiled warmly, brushing away a stray tear from Sarah's cheek. You don't need to thank me, she replied gently. This is for you, because you deserve it. You've already shown so much courage in your life, and I hope this reminds you that you can overcome anything. Don't ever forget how amazing you are. The sincerity in Caitlin's voice made Sarah's heart ache with gratitude. She hugged the jersey close, feeling as if she were holding on to a lifeline. For years she had dreamed of meeting Caitlin, of telling her how much she meant to her, but she had never imagined that Caitlin would go out of her way to make her feel special, to show her that she mattered. Around them, the crowd erupted into applause once more. People stood up from their seats, cheering loudly as cameras flashed and phones were raised to capture the moment. Social media notifications began flooding in almost instantly, as fans nearby recorded videos and posted updates online. Hashtags, like "Sir Kindness on Court" and "More Inspiration in Action," started trending within minutes, spreading the story of Caitlin and Sarah far beyond the confines of the arena. For Sarah, however, none of that noise mattered right now. All she could focus on was the jersey in her arms and the woman kneeling beside her. In that moment, Caitlin wasn't just a basketball star. She was a friend, a mentor, and a source of endless inspiration. Every word Caitlin had spoken resonated deeply with Sarah, reinforcing the belief that no obstacle was too big to conquer. As Caitlin stood up to leave, she gave Sarah one final reassuring smile. "Take care, okay?" she said. "And remember, you're stronger than you think." "I will," Sarah promised, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, Caitlin. Really thank you." With that, Caitlin jogged back to her team, ready to focus on the game ahead. But as she stepped onto the court, she glanced over her shoulder one last time, giving Sarah a small wave. Sarah waved back, her heart swelling with emotions she couldn't quite put into words. She felt seen, valued, and loved in a way she never had before. The game officially began soon after, but Sarah barely noticed the scoreboard or the plays unfolding on the court. Her mind was consumed by the events of the past few minutes, the heartfelt conversation, the unexpected gift, and the overwhelming sense of connection she had shared with Caitlin. Each time she looked down at the jersey in her lap, she felt a renewed surge of confidence. It was as if Caitlin had handed her more than just a piece of memorabilia. She had given her permission to dream bigger, to push harder, and to believe in herself unconditionally. Meanwhile, Caitlin played with a fire in her eyes that night. Every pass, every shot seemed infused with purpose, as if she were channeling the emotions of her encounter with Sarah into her performance. Her teammates noticed the intensity in her movements, the extra effort she poured into every play. When asked about it later, Caitlin simply shrugged and said, "Some moments remind you why you play this game. Tonight was one of those nights." As the first half came to an end, Sarah's family gathered around her, beaming with pride. Her younger brother couldn't stop talking about how cool it was to see his sister meet her idol. "She's my hero too now," he declared, grinning ear to ear. Their parents wrapped their arms around Sarah, hugging her tightly as they whispered words of encouragement. They had always known how resilient Sarah was, but tonight they saw a new light in her eyes, a spark of determination that hadn't been there before. By halftime, the story of Caitlin and Sarah had spread throughout the entire stadium. Ushers and security guards stopped by to congratulate Sarah, calling her the real MVP of the evening. Strangers sitting nearby introduced themselves, sharing their own stories of overcoming challenges and expressing admiration for her courage. One elderly man even handed her a tissue, saying, "You keep shining, young lady. The world needs more people like you." Through it all, Sarah remained humble, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. She didn't consider herself extraordinary. She was just someone who loved basketball and admired Caitlin Clark. Yet, in that arena, surrounded by thousands of people, she realized that her story had touched others in ways she hadn't anticipated. Her vulnerability, her honesty, and her willingness to reach out to Caitlin had inspired not only herself, but countless others as well. When the buzzer sounded to signal the start of the second half, Sarah finally turned her attention back to the game. Watching Caitlin play with such passion and precision filled her with pride. With each three-pointer Caitlin sank, Sarah cheered louder, clapping until her hands hurt. The jersey in her lap served as a constant reminder of the bond she had formed with Caitlin, and of the promise she had made to herself, to keep dreaming, no matter what. By the time the final whistle blew, signaling the end of the match, Sarah's voice was hoarse from cheering, and her cheeks hurt from smiling so much. The home team had won, but for Sarah, the victory extended far beyond the scoreboard. She had walked into the arena as a fan, but she was leaving as someone transformed, someone who believed in her ability to rise above her circumstances and chase her dreams. As the crowd began to disperse, Sarah lingered in her seat, reluctant to leave. Holding the jersey close, she gazed out at the emptying court, replaying the night's events in her mind. From the moment she called out Caitlin's name to the instant she received the signed jersey, everything had felt surreal, like a scene from a movie. But it wasn't fiction. It was real life. And it had changed her forever. Little did Sarah know this was only the beginning of her journey. The kindness Caitlin had shown her that night would ripple outward, inspiring others to act with compassion and empathy. And as Sarah navigated the challenges ahead, she would carry Caitlin's words with her, letting them guide her through even the darkest moments. For now, though, she allowed herself to bask in the glow of the evening, knowing that she had experienced something truly magical, a moment of connection that transcended the boundaries of fame, disability, and circumstance. As the game continued, the energy in the arena shifted. The crowd wasn't just focused on the scoreboard or the dazzling plays happening on the court anymore. Instead, whispers and murmurs filled the air as people recounted what they had witnessed moments earlier, the heartfelt interaction between Caitlin Clark and Sarah. It was as though a ripple of kindness had spread through the stadium, touching everyone who had seen or heard about it. Fans nearby couldn't stop talking about how Caitlin had taken the time to connect with Sarah, even pausing her warm-up routine to kneel down and speak with her at eye level. "Did you see that?" One woman asked her friend, pointing toward Sarah's section. "She gave her a jersey. I've been coming to games for years and I've never seen anything like that." Her friend nodded in agreement, adding, "It wasn't just the gesture, it was the way she spoke to her. So genuine, so caring." The story traveled quickly, thanks in part to social media. A teenager sitting a few rows behind Sarah had recorded the entire exchange on his phone, capturing Caitlin handing over the signed jersey and Sarah's emotional reaction. Within minutes of posting the video online, it went viral. Comments poured in from all over the country, some praising Caitlin for her humility, others expressing admiration for Sarah's courage in speaking up. Hashtags like Caitlin's kindness and Caughting Courage on Wheels began trending, turning the moment into something much bigger than anyone could have anticipated. Back in her seat, Sarah remained unaware of the storm of attention swirling around her. She was still processing everything herself, the conversation, the jersey, and the overwhelming sense of validation she felt after meeting Caitlin. But soon enough, strangers started approaching her, eager to share their thoughts. One man introduced himself as a father of 2 daughters who played basketball. "You remind me of them," he said warmly. "They look up to players like Caitlin too, but tonight I think they'll look up to you. What you did, having the courage to reach out, that's inspiring." Sarah blushed at the compliment, unsure of how to respond. She didn't see herself as brave or extraordinary. She was just someone who loved basketball and admired Caitlin. Yet the words of encouragement kept coming, each one chipping away at the doubts she had carried for so long. For years she had felt invisible, overlooked because of her disability. But now, surrounded by people congratulating her and calling her an inspiration, she realized that her presence mattered, that her voice had power. Her family noticed the change in her demeanor almost immediately. Her younger brother Jake leaned over and whispered, "Everyone's talking about you, sis. You're famous." Sarah laughed softly, shaking her head. "I'm not famous," she replied. "I just got lucky, I guess." Their mother placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder, her eyes glistening with pride. "No, sweetheart," she said, firmly. "This isn't luck, this is you being bold, being yourself, and look at the impact you've made." By halftime, the buzz about Sarah and Caitlin had reached every corner of the arena. Even the commentators took notice, briefly mentioning the encounter during their analysis. "We're hearing reports of a truly special moment here tonight," one of them said, gesturing towards Sarah's section. Caitlin Clark took a few minutes before the game to meet a young fan named Sarah, who uses a wheelchair. Not only did they have a meaningful conversation, but Caitlin also gave her a signed jersey. Moments like these remind us why sports are about more than just competition, they're about connection. The mention on live television sent another wave of excitement through the crowd. People craned their necks to catch a glimpse of Sarah, some giving her thumbs-ups or mouthing "thank you" from afar. Ushers and security guards stopped by to congratulate her, telling her how rare it was to witness such an authentic display of kindness. One usher even joked, "If I were you, I'd frame that jersey and put it on my wall." Despite the growing attention, Sarah stayed grounded. She wasn't comfortable being in the spotlight, but she appreciated the positivity radiating from those around her. Each kind word, each smile, reinforced the idea that her story had resonated with others. She thought back to Caitlin's advice. Don't ever let anyone tell you what you can or can't do. Those words echoed in her mind, fueling a newfound determination to embrace life fully, no matter the challenges she faced. Meanwhile, Caitlin played with a renewed sense of purpose. Her teammates noticed the intensity in her movements, the extra effort she poured into every play. When asked about it during a quick break, Caitlin simply smiled and said, "Some nights remind you why you love this game. Tonight is one of those nights." Though she didn't elaborate, her teammates understood. Caitlin had always been known for her competitive spirit, but tonight there was something different, a deeper motivation driving her performance. As the second half unfolded, Sarah watched intently, cheering louder than ever before. Every basket Caitlin scored felt personal, as if it were a victory not just for the team but for everyone in the arena. The jersey resting in her lap served as a constant reminder of the bond she had formed with Caitlin, and of the promise she had made to herself, to keep dreaming, no matter what. By the time the final buzzer sounded, signaling the end of the match, the home team had secured a hard-fought win. But for Sarah, the victory extended far beyond the scoreboard. She had entered the arena as a fan, hoping for a chance to meet her idol. Now, she was leaving as someone transformed, someone who believed in her ability to rise above her circumstances and chase her dreams. As the crowd began to disperse, Sarah lingered in her seat, reluctant to leave. Holding the jersey close, she gazed out at the emptying court, replaying the night's events in her mind. From the moment she called out Caitlin's name to the instant she received the signed jersey, everything had felt surreal, like a scene from a movie, but it wasn't fiction. It was real life, and it had changed her forever. Little did Sarah know, this was only the beginning of her journey. The kindness Caitlin had shown her that night would ripple outward, inspiring others to act with compassion and empathy. Fans across the country shared the video of their interaction, using it as a reminder of the importance of kindness in everyday life. Teachers showed it in classrooms, parents discussed it with their children, and community leaders highlighted it as an example of how small acts of generosity can create lasting change. For Sarah, however, the most profound impact was yet to come. As she navigated the challenges ahead, she would carry Caitlin's words with her, letting them guide her through even the darkest moments. She knew that life wouldn't always be easy, but she also knew that she wasn't alone. The bond she had formed with Caitlin, and the support she had received from strangers that night had given her a sense of belonging she had longed for her entire life. As she finally stood up to leave, helped by her family, Sarah glanced one last time at the court. The lights were dimming and the players had disappeared into the locker rooms. But the memory of Caitlin kneeling beside her, smiling warmly and speaking words of encouragement, would stay with her forever. It was a moment of pure humanity, a testament to the power of connection and kindness. And as Sarah wheeled herself toward the exit, clutching the jersey tightly, she realized that she wasn't just taking home a piece of memorabilia. She was carrying hope, courage, and the unwavering belief that no dream was too big to chase. The game had ended, and the adrenaline that fueled Caitlin Clark throughout the match began to fade. As she walked off the court, sweat dripping from her forehead and her jersey sticking to her back, she felt a strange mix of exhaustion and fulfillment. The team had won, which was always cause for celebration, but tonight felt different. Something deeper lingered in her mind, a moment that transcended basketball, something that reminded her why she played the sport in the first place. In the locker room, Caitlin sat quietly at her stall, staring at the floor as her teammates buzzed around her. They were laughing, high-fiving, and replaying key plays from the game. Normally, Caitlin would have joined in, relishing the camaraderie that came with victory. But tonight, her thoughts kept drifting back to Sarah, the young woman in the wheelchair who had called out her name before the game. She could still picture her face bright with hope despite the challenges she faced daily. Caitlin hadn't expected to be so deeply moved by their brief encounter, but there was no denying it now. That conversation meant more to her than any three-pointer or buzzer beater ever could. After showering and changing into casual clothes, Caitlin stepped out of the locker room to face the swarm of reporters waiting patiently outside. Microphones were thrust toward her, cameras flashed, and questions flew at her from all directions. Most journalists wanted to know about her performance during the game, how she managed to sink those crucial shots under pressure, what strategies she used to outplay the opposing team. But one question stood out among the rest. "Caitlin," a reporter asked, leaning forward slightly, "we heard about your interaction with a fan earlier tonight. Can you tell us more about that?" For a moment, Caitlin hesitated. She wasn't sure how much to share. After all, it had been a private moment between her and Sarah. But then she remembered Sarah's courage, the way she had reached out despite her shyness, the tears streaming down her face as they talked. Caitlin realized that this story wasn't just hers to keep. It belonged to Sarah too, and if sharing it could inspire others, then it was worth opening up. "I'm glad you brought that up," Caitlin said, her voice softening. "There was a young woman named Sarah who spoke to me before the game. She uses a wheelchair because of cerebral palsy, but let me tell you, her spirit is unstoppable. She told me how much I mean to her, how watching me play gives her hope when life feels overwhelming." Caitlin paused, collecting her thoughts. The reporters leaned in closer, captivated by her words. This wasn't the usual post-game interview filled with stats and strategies. It was raw, emotional, and deeply human. "To be honest," Caitlin continued, "I think I gained more from that moment than she did. Sarah reminded me why I play. This game, not just for points or accolades, but to inspire others. Hearing her say that I've helped her believe in herself, it hit me hard. Because honestly, there were times when I doubted myself too. People told me I wasn't good enough, that I'd never make it to this level. But basketball taught me to push through those doubts, to fight for my dreams no matter what." Her voice cracked slightly as she spoke, betraying the emotions bubbling beneath the surface. Caitlin took a deep breath, steadying herself before continuing. "Sarah has already shown so much bravery in her life. Just being here tonight, cheering for her team, reaching out to someone she admires, that takes guts. And I want her and anyone else listening to know that they can overcome anything. No matter what obstacles are in your way, don't let them define you. You're stronger than you think." As Caitlin finished speaking, the room fell silent. Reporters exchanged glances, some nodding in agreement while others scribbled furiously in their notebooks. A few moments later, applause broke out, soft at first, then growing louder. It wasn't the typical praise reserved for athletes after a big win. This applause was different. It was heartfelt, genuine, and full of respect. One reporter raised his hand, asking cautiously, "Do you think moments like these affect how you approach the game? Does it change the way you see yourself as a player?" Caitlin smiled faintly, considering the question. "Absolutely," she replied without hesitation. "Basketball is my passion, but it's also a platform. Every time I step onto the court, I remind myself that I'm not just playing for me. I'm playing for everyone who looks up to me, for everyone who needs a little hope or encouragement." Meeting Sarah tonight reinforced that for me. It reminded me that sometimes the most important victories happen off the court. Her answer resonated deeply with everyone present. Even seasoned sports journalists, accustomed to covering games and analyzing performances, found themselves moved by Caitlin's sincerity. Social media exploded once again as clips of the interview went viral, with fans praising Caitlin not only for her skills but for her compassion and humility. Comments flooded in from people sharing their own struggles and expressing gratitude for Caitlin's words of encouragement. Back home, sitting in her living room, Sarah watched the interview unfold on TV. Her heart swelled with pride as she listened to Caitlin recount their conversation. She couldn't believe that Caitlin had spoken so openly about her, calling her brave and inspiring. For years, Sarah had felt invisible, dismissed because of her disability. But now, seeing Caitlin talk about her with such admiration made her feel seen and valued in a way she never had before. Her family gathered around her, equally moved by Caitlin's words. "Did you hear that?" Jake asked excitedly, pointing at the screen. "She said you inspired her." Their parents hugged Sarah tightly, tears streaming down their faces. They had always known how strong their daughter was, but hearing Caitlin acknowledge it publicly validated everything they believed about her. As the interview wrapped up, Caitlin stood up and thanked the reporters for their time. Before leaving, she added one final thought. "If anyone takes anything away from tonight, I hope it's this. We all have struggles, whether they're visible or not. Don't be afraid to reach out, to ask for help, to believe in yourself. And if you ever get the chance to lift someone else up, do it. Those small acts of kindness, they matter more than you realize." With that, Caitlin walked away, disappearing into the hallway. But her words lingered long after she was gone. Fans across the country shared the video of the interview, using it as a reminder of the importance of empathy and connection. Teachers showed it in classrooms, parents discussed it with their children, and community leaders highlighted it as an example of how sports could bring people together in meaningful ways. For Caitlin, the encounter with Sarah became a turning point, a moment that reshaped how she viewed her role as an athlete. It wasn't just about winning games or breaking records anymore. It was about making a difference, however small, in the lives of others. Every practice, every game, every interaction with a fan carried new weight now. She vowed to carry Sarah's story with her, letting it guide her actions both on and off the court. And for Sarah, Caitlin's reflections served as a powerful affirmation. Knowing that her idol saw her as a source of inspiration gave her the confidence to embrace her own potential. She realized that her journey wasn't defined by her limitations. It was shaped by her resilience, her dreams, and her ability to connect with others. As she turned off the TV and headed to bed that night, Sarah clutched Caitlin's jersey tightly, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but for the first time in a long while, she felt ready to face them, head on. Little did either of them know, their bond would continue to grow, inspiring countless others along the way. What started as a chance meeting between a disabled fan and her idol had blossomed into something far greater, a testament to the power of kindness, courage, and shared humanity. In the days and weeks following the game, Sarah's life transformed in ways she could never have imagined. The video of her meeting Caitlin Clark had gone viral, spreading far beyond the confines of the arena and reaching millions of people worldwide. Social media platforms were flooded with posts praising both Caitlin for her kindness and Sarah for her courage. Messages poured in from strangers, some sharing their own struggles, others expressing gratitude for the reminder that small acts of compassion can make a big difference. For Sarah, who had spent much of her life feeling invisible, this newfound attention was overwhelming but deeply meaningful. Her family noticed the change in her almost immediately. Gone was the shy, hesitant girl who doubted her place in the world. In her stead stood someone brimming with confidence, eager to embrace life fully despite its challenges. "I feel like I'm finally being heard," Sarah told her mom one evening, as they sat together on the couch, scrolling through messages online. Her mom smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "You deserve to be heard, sweetheart. You always have." Encouraged by Caitlin's words and the outpouring of support from strangers, Sarah decided to take a bold step. She began speaking publicly about her experiences, using her platform to advocate for accessibility and inclusivity in sports. At first, it was just small gatherings, school assemblies, local community events, but soon, invitations started coming in from larger organizations. People wanted to hear her story, to learn how she found strength in adversity, and how Caitlin's gesture had inspired her to dream bigger. One of her most memorable appearances was at a regional conference on disability rights. Standing on stage, clutching the microphone tightly, Sarah recounted the night she met Caitlin. "Before that game, I used to think my disability defined me," she said, her voice steady despite the nerves bubbling inside her. "But Caitlin reminded me that my strength comes from within, not from what I can or can't do physically, but from my heart and my determination. She made me believe that I matter, that my voice matters." The audience erupted into applause, many wiping away tears as they listened. Afterward, dozens of attendees lined up to thank Sarah personally, telling her how her words had touched them. Some shared their own stories of overcoming obstacles, while others promised to work harder toward creating a more inclusive society. It was clear that Sarah's message resonated deeply, not only with those facing physical challenges, but with anyone who had ever felt overlooked or underestimated. Meanwhile, Caitlin kept in touch with her newfound friend, sending occasional texts to check in and offering words of encouragement. When Sarah mentioned she was nervous about an upcoming speech, Caitlin replied immediately, "You've got this, Sarah, remember. You're stronger than you think." Those simple words carried so much weight, giving Sarah the boost she needed to face each new challenge head-on. Their friendship also inspired Caitlin to use her platform even more intentionally. During interviews, she often spoke about the importance of empathy and connection, urging fans to look beyond surface-level differences and see the humanity in everyone. "We all have struggles," she would say. "Some are visible, some aren't. But we're all fighting battles, and sometimes the smallest act of kindness can mean the world to someone." Caitlin's efforts extended beyond words. She partnered with organizations focused on accessibility in sports, advocating for adaptive equipment and programs that allowed individuals with disabilities to participate more fully. One initiative she championed involved hosting basketball clinics specifically designed for kids with physical limitations. The clinics were a huge success, drawing participants from across the country and earning praise from parents and coaches alike. "This is what sports should be about," Caitlin said during one clinic, "bringing people together no matter their circumstances." For Sarah, attending one of these clinics was a dream come true. Watching other kids with disabilities play basketball alongside able-bodied peers filled her with pride and joy. She realized that Caitlin wasn't just talking about inclusivity. She was actively working to create opportunities for others to experience the same sense of belonging that basketball had given her. "Thank you," Sarah whispered to Caitlin during a quiet moment between drills. "You're changing lives." Caitlin smiled, shaking her head modestly. "We're doing it together, Sarah. None of this would be possible without you reminding me why it matters." As time went on, the bond between Caitlin and Sarah grew stronger. They became more than just idol and fan. They were partners in advocacy, united by a shared mission to inspire others and break down barriers. Their story continued to spread, featured in documentaries, articles, and even school curriculums. Teachers used it as an example of how empathy and determination can lead to positive change, while parents shared it with their children as a lesson in kindness and resilience. Years later, When Sarah looked back on that fateful night at the arena, she marveled at how much had changed, not just in her own life but in the lives of countless others who had been touched by their story. What had started as a brief encounter between a disabled fan and her idol had blossomed into a movement, a testament to the power of connection, compassion, and shared humanity. Sarah eventually pursued a career in advocacy, working tirelessly to promote accessibility and representation in sports. She credited Caitlin with giving her the courage to chase her dreams, saying, "She didn't just hand me a jersey that night. She handed me hope, the belief that I could make a difference." And Caitlin? She remained humble, always deflecting praise and redirecting the spotlight toward those she aimed to uplift. Yet there was no denying the impact she had made, not just as a basketball player, but as a compassionate human being who understood the importance of using her platform for good. Together, Caitlin and Sarah proved that moments of kindness have ripple effects, inspiring generations to embrace challenges with grace and determination. Their bond served as a beacon of hope, reminding everyone that sometimes the most meaningful victories happen off the court. And though their paths may have crossed by chance, the legacy they created together would endure forever, a lasting reminder that even in a world full of noise, a single act of kindness can change everything.